Hello, in this video we will look at graphing exponential functions. You begin by finding the center of the graph by setting exponent equals to 0 and solving for x, because when base is raised to the 0 power, it is always equal to 1. Then you pick two x values before and after to make a table, and then you calculate the horizontal asymptote, which is y equals to the constant of the function. So let's graph g of x is equal to 2 to the x plus 1 minus 3. We begin by setting the exponent equals to 0, so x plus 1 is equal to 0. To solve for x, we minus 1 on both sides. So when x is equal to -1, we have the center of the graph. So here we have a table for x and y values. We calculate y by plugging in x values into 2 to the x plus 1 minus 3. So the middle point is when x is equal to -1. That's the center of the graph. From there we pick two x values before and after. So consecutive numbers before -1 are -2, -3, and two consecutive x values after -1 are, the next number after -1 is 0, and then we have +1. So here we have 5 consecutive numbers for x values with the value that makes the exponent equals to 0 in the middle. Now we just need to calculate the horizontal asymptote, which is y equals to the constant of the function. We have g of x is equal to 2 to the x plus 1 minus 3. -3 is the constant in this function, so y equals to -3 is our horizontal asymptote. On this step we can calculate y values by plugging x values into g of x is equal to 2 to the x plus 1 minus 3. Let's calculate first y value, which is at x is equal to -3, by plugging in -3 into g of x, which will give us g of -3 is equal to 2 to the -3 plus 1 minus 3. So g of -3 is equal to 2 to the power of -3 plus 1 is -2 minus 3. This gives us g of -3 is equal to 1 out of 2 to the second. And we still have minus 3. This will give us g of -3 is equal to 1 out of 2 to the second is 4 minus 3. So g of -3 is equal to 1/4 minus 3. We have more negatives, so the difference is negative. 3 minus 1/4 will give us 2 3/4 left. Since graphing a decimal is easier, we can rewrite this as -2.75 is 75 cents. So when x is -3, y is -2.75. Let's calculate the next y value at x is equal to -2. So let's substitute -2 instead of x into g of x, and we get g of -2 is equal to 2 raised to the -2 plus 1 minus 3. So we get g of -2 is equal to 2 to the -2 plus 1 gives us -1 minus 3. This is g of -2 is equal to -1 becomes positive when we move the base into denominator. So we have 1/2 minus 3. So g of -2 is equal to 1/2 minus 3. Difference will be negative because we have more negatives. And 3 minus a half gives us 2 1/2. Since it's easier to plot decimals on a graph, this is equal to -2.5. So when x is -2, y is -2.5. Let's calculate the y value at the center of the graph at x equals to -1. So let's calculate g of -1 by plugging in -1 instead of x. And we will get g of -1 is equal to 2 raised to the negative 1 plus 1 minus 3. So we get g of negative 1 is equal to 2 to the power of negative 1 plus 1 is 0 minus 3. So we get g of negative 1 is equal to 2 to the 0 is 1 minus 3. So g of negative 1 is equal to the difference between 1 and negative 3 is negative 2. So when x is negative 1, g is negative 2. Let's calculate the next y value at x is equal to 0 by plugging in 0 instead of x into g of x. So g of 0 is equal to 2 to the 0 plus 1, which is just 2 to the first, minus 3. This gives us g of 0 is equal to 2 minus 3 is negative 1. So when x is 0, y is negative 1. And let's calculate the last y value at x is equal to 1 by plugging in 1 instead of x into g of x. This will give us g of 1 is equal to 2 to the 1 plus 1 minus 3. So we get g of 1 is equal to 2 to the 1 plus 1 is 2 minus 3. So g of 1 is equal to 2 to the second is 4 minus 3, and we get g of 1 is equal to 4 minus 3 is 1. So when x is 1, y is also 1. So now we just need to plot these values on our graph. Let's begin with horizontal asymptote at y equals to negative 3. We begin with the horizontal asymptote because the graph does not cross the horizontal asymptote. It's a good idea to have all of the asymptotes graphed first. And now we just need to plot our point. The first point is at x equals to negative 3 and y is negative 2.75. Y equals to negative 2.75 is 3/4 down from negative 2 towards negative 3. So here's our point of negative 3, negative 2.75. The next point is at x is negative 2, y is negative 2.5. So y equals to negative 2.5 is halfway between negative 2 and negative 3. So when x is negative 2, y is negative 2.5. The next point is our center point, which is at x is equal to negative 1, y is equal to negative 2. The next point we have is when x is 0, y is negative 1. So when x is 0, y is negative 1. We have a point here. And the last point is at x equals to 1 and y equals to 1 as well. So at 1, 1, we have the last point. So from the center point, the values keep raising exponentially, and before it, the values get really small and begin approaching the horizontal asymptote. And this is our exponential graph. That's all.